Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to our YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is our special open spoiler discussion. It's our Obi-Wan after show. Obi-Wan has now launched with its first 2 episodes as of last night, and we are here to talk about those 2 episodes. And by the way, let's go to the wide shot again. This is our Studio B. I told you we had a nice little tiny studio in here to shoot some of our other shows. So this is our very, very first show in Studio B, and we are glad that you guys are joining us. Of course, joining me here today to talk Obi-Wan is Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett.
It's great to be here, John. It's kind of neat being in Studio B.
Studio B is kind of a nice place to be. It's a little bit different.
I like this.
Anyway, guys, here's how today's show is going to go. We are talking about, of course, Obi-Wan episodes 1 and 2. And this is a fully open spoiler format, okay? So we're going to talk about all the different details about the show. We're going to talk about all the things that are spoilery. If you've not seen episodes 1 and 2 yet, then make sure you just click this as one of your favorites and come back and visit a little bit later. Otherwise, you've been warned. Here's what we're going to do. Rob and I are going to spend like the first half hour just talking about our thoughts on Obi-Wan episodes 1 and 2, and then we'll go over and start taking your live questions. If you guys have a live thought, comment, question, observation, critique, theory, whatever, you can use the super chat feature to fire that in, and we will get to that. It should give you a heads up. The super chats are only going to be open probably for another minute or two, so you're going to have to get those fired in as soon as you can. All right. Let's not waste any time, Rob.
All right, man.
Let's get right to it here. Obi-Wan episode 1 launches. Let's start with just giving general thoughts here. So what's your general overall thought and perception of the show?
Well, the first episode I really enjoyed. I liked the recap, and I liked how we got into it by seeing once again the aftermath of Order 66. Back in the Jedi Temple, we saw a Jedi trying to get younglings out of the temple. She did not succeed.
No, but we saw who one of the younglings was.
Yes, and there was people that did escape, and I liked that a great deal. And I have to say the first part of the episode and descending back and catching up with Obi-Wan Kenobi 10 years after Order 66 on Tatooine and catching up with him in his life, I thought it was really effective. I mean, I felt bad for the guy. There he was toiling in some meat factory, whether it was crate dragons or whatever the hell they were eating, slabs of meat. I'm like, our powerful Jedi has been reduced to this. He's basically become a functionary in some butcher shop, and he steals a slab of meat every day to feed his trusty steed, whatever it's called. I don't know what's the
Epomi. I can't remember what it was.
I liked all of that. I thought that they spent some time and really we got to know Kenobi and his situation. I really appreciate that. It definitely harked back to Westerns and samurai stories, and I was in, man. I mean, immediately was. How'd you feel about that?
I was overwhelmed by how good the first episode was. Like, really overwhelmed. It was a more dramatic approach to Star Wars than what we've seen maybe ever. Again, seeing Obi-Wan Kenobi, who once again they're not just picking it right up where Revenge of the Sith left off. This guy's now spent 10 years in hiding in the desert, trying to keep an eye on Luke from afar, trying to keep a low profile, all that kind of stuff. And just seeing that the universe has fallen apart because of the failure of the Jedi, and it all happened on their watch, as you pointed out this morning, right? So but he was still Obi-Wan, right? And so the way Deborah Chow orchestrated that, the way the performance Ewan McGregor brought to it was great. I really like the Inquisitors. I knew that we would. I knew I'd like the Inquisitors. I even like the Reva character very much, and we talked about this a bit on the John Campea Show earlier today. I wasn't really big on the performance of it. And now, again, I'm going to withhold judgment on that because I'm going to see maybe that's just like a stepping stone towards something that they're building for the latter episodes. So I'm going to give that. But I definitely thought episode 1 was better than episode 2.
Yep, very much so.
But that's kind of unfair to episode 2 because, again, episode 1 was so outstanding. I knew it was going to be my favorite scene, but my favorite scene was with Owen Lars. And really two parts of the same scene. First, Owen is confronting Obi-Wan, and then Owen is confronting Reva. And in both scenes, Owen Lars is one of the biggest badasses in the universe. Are you kidding me? This guy's just like sitting down staring at who he knows can kill her at any second. He knows she can kill him at any second. And he, like, pardon the language, everybody, he's like, fuck you.
Yeah.
You know, basically, it's like, nope, I don't know any Jedi. He could easily just said, okay, yeah, there's a Jedi right in there. It didn't matter. He actually thought he was going to die too. He thought he was going to die. You know what? He was willing to die. It's like, fine, go ahead. I'm going to protect that kid. I'm going to protect, I've been charged with Luke. He is my nephew. I am going to protect him with my life, and I got to die, then I'm going to die. And it's like, and then he's talking to another Jedi, Obi-Wan Kenobi, General Kenobi. And he's like, no, fuck you too. Like, this is the way it's going to be. Like, and again, I loved Owen Lars as this. I just love the character.
I thought it was great too. I mean, those moisture farmers, they're a hardy bunch. They don't put up with any. I mean, when you're trying to pull out.
A desert world trying to be a moisture farmer.
One of the things I also loved the scene with Kenobi and the Jawa.
That was really good too.
And what I really loved is in terms of canonical callbacks and things like that, I loved the T-16 Skyhopper model.
Yes.
Because there's the Luke playing with it.
Yeah, we all recognized it right away.
It was so great. And there wasn't like some insert shot that was going, look at the T-16 Skyhopper. It was, if you knew, you knew. And if you didn't, it was, and then when Lars brought it back, like, what are you doing? And the idea that he goes and leaves things for Luke. I really thought all of that was really interesting world building, and I quite enjoyed that. And they took time.
Yeah.
They allowed us, it didn't rush through. And I'll tell you something else. I think the way they've been shooting these series using the volume stages has become constraining in terms of the way the shows look. And I think Deborah Chow, there was a lot more wide angle, like wider shots, different camera lenses than we're seeing in Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, because I think that probably came out of her experience having worked on Mandalorian. So there was a lot of wider shots that we weren't used to or that we hadn't seen much. And I thought that visually the show was a step up beyond the other televised Star Wars shows, that they're really expanding the visual palette. And I like that.
I will say one of my criticisms, even of episode 1, which I adore and love, one of my criticisms was the visual effects were not quite up to snuff. Right. There are several times it's like, well, that's compositing. Like, for instance, like Obi-Wan riding on, again, I don't know what to call his freaking space camel, but riding the EOP, I can't remember what it's called. But as he's riding, it's like, that did not look good. And like the initial shot of the Inquisitor ship flying on a Tatooine, it's like, well, that doesn't look very good. Now, obviously, it was a practical set once the camera went wide and you saw it. But it was a little bit jarring about how totally different that looked. But it's like, again, I told myself as I'm watching it, TV budget, just accept that it's not going to look as sharp as it should if it was a movie. I'm okay with that. So I got past that, but that was one minor little nitpick I had about that first episode.
I don't think you're wrong. I mean, Star Wars effects have a very specific look to them. And if anything, I would say these looked a little fuzzy, for lack of just overall. It didn't have that crispness that, I mean, the original trilogy, they use models and things like that. And I know Phantom Menace has, for a movie, it had more models and miniatures built than almost any other movie in history. But it had that look to it. There's a crispness to the effects. And this fuzzy is the only word I think I could use right now. But I think I agree with you.
Well, let's get into some of the details here. So the Inquisitors show up. They go into the bar. Grand Inquisitor is a sharp badass.
Right.
I was not expecting his death. Well, like I mean, I figured at some point Reva would turn on him. I totally expected at some point she would turn on him. That became pretty obvious. I did not expect that to happen in episode 2.
No.
But which is really too bad because I thought the dude was a badass. The way he walked into that cantina or whatever it was, it's like just talking to the patrons, and
I love that scene.
That whole speech was great.
He was great. And like I said earlier, I really liked Sun Kang's character as well.
Fifth brother, I think.
The fifth brother, and she's the third sister.
Third sister.
Reva, though, she was really fairly one note.
Yes.
I thought in her performance. I mean, she looked great, but I wanted to see more of like, these Inquisitors are larger than life. And Sun Kang had his kind of weird alien way of being. And then our Grand Inquisitor was, like you said, he was a badass.
Rupert Friend,
and the way he just kind of wandered around the bar, I love that. I mean, classic villain turn, but she was a little bit one note, I wanted to know more about her, like the way she conveyed her character. Just, I'm like, I want to know more about you, lady.
Yeah, there was no subtlety to that character.
No.
But you did get a lot of that in the Grand Inquisitor. That's why I was kind of disappointed to see him go. Although, good story turn having Reva just like, I've had enough with you. Like,
right.
Boom. And to be fair, like in episode 2, we're kind of meshing episode 1 and 2 together here. But in episode 2, like the Grand Inquisitor really tries to screw her over. It's like, wait a second, you've been giving me all types of crap for going after Kenobi. And now I got him. And you just want to step in and take, and you're sending me away?
Well, he is the boss.
Like, I don't think so. Right? Like, I don't think so. She's clearly very power hungry, which I like about the character very much. Again, it's the character I like. I just didn't like the way they expressed the character, and we'll see how that develops over the next few things. But she's clearly very, very power hungry. Again, I'm jumping all over the place here, but I'm sure the super chats will as well. But another thing that didn't quite work for me, now we're in episode 2, that didn't quite work for me. I love Camille Nanjiani. I do. And I know Erin said earlier today that was one of her big strong suits of the show. I wasn't big on that character. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, I did like the idea that he's a con man, but he's a con man with a conscience. Like, I do want to get this mom and her child to safety. I'm going to make a little money on the side, though, while I'm doing it, right? And then ultimately at the end, it's like he realizes this is a real Jedi, and I'm willing to put my life on the line for it. Kind of like Reva. I like the character, just kind of the way it was expressed. Felt a little out of step with the rest of the tone of the show. I don't know. And I love Camille Nanjiani.
No, I'm with you. I thought it was like, okay, we have to fill in this thing, so let's have a little B plot here with this. Which I didn't mind it as much. It just seemed like he was pretending to be a Jedi. And if Jedis are being hunted down, and the word gets out that, hey, there's a Jedi here that can help you get off world or whatever you need, I would think that wouldn't be a great plan. If you're going to be a con man, don't try and pretend you're a Jedi. Not in this environment. I mean, this environment was incredibly dangerous. It just didn't seem like a good way to go.
Right. But again, like I said, I liked the character, just wasn't thrilled with how they kind of expressed it. That was all.
Yeah.
And now the parkour. Oh. I didn't mind the parkour, to be honest with you. The one moment, and we talked about this a little on the show today, but I withheld the actual moment. The one moment for me that made me go, really? Was that necessary? She uses the Force to push down like a beam to use as a bridge. And as she's crossing it, she does a big leaping, elaborate back, like not forward flip to where she's going, back flip first. And I'm like, that's counterproductive to what she's trying to do right now. And I don't know, just that moment felt a little bit silly to me.
Now, here's the thing that I thought for me was the weakest. And it was the portrayal of Alderaan. And
really? That's going to be one of my strengths.
I loved seeing Alderaan. But it seemed to me that dealing with Bail Organa and meeting Leia's adoptive mother, I'm like, okay, we're 10 years into the fall of the Republic that's turned into an empire. I got no sense of where one of my favorite things in Star Wars is the first scene on the Death Star where you have all the Imperial officers talking,
right?
And you're building up backstory, and you're finding it. The Rebel Alliance is too well equipped, dangerous to your Starfleet commander, not to this battle station. And in very short bursts of dialogue, you're given a lot of understanding of the world
and the political context of the universe.
Absolutely,
yeah.
I got none of that from it. It felt like suddenly I was dropped into a Disney animated film when you've got a precocious girl running through the forest. I mean, she might as well have been talking to Bambi, and I really love that actress playing young Leia. I thought she was very, very good, but it felt like, yep, well, here we are in Alderaan. We're not really affected by the fall of the Republic. And I wanted to get some sense of that. Like you meet the cousins are coming over and my cousin's a dick. And Leia gave it back to her, gave it back to him. But I wanted to get a sense of here's a former senator. It still exists. The Imperial Senate is still there, or now it's the, whatever it is.
No, it's the Imperial Senate.
I mean, but it felt like everything was kind of the same on Alderaan, and the juxtaposition with Tatooine and where we were at with the rest of the universe. I wanted to know what was the political system? What was the structure going? Like, were they in danger? Did they now have to, was the specter of the Empire coming in, and what, is there Imperial forces on Alderaan? Like, do they have to be careful? It seemed like there was no sense of jeopardy. Like, she's just out there playing with her batteries not included, flying saucer, alien, whatever, a droid. And I wanted more. I thought here was a great place to give me kind of like that Imperial officer's briefing where I wanted something. It seemed like here you have a husband and wife talking about their daughter, and even has that great conversation. He says, you know, one day you're going to rule. And I got no sense. I mean, she was too cutesy and fun, and I wanted to feel something like,
see, I disagree with you completely on that, 100%. Because if you understand, like the political status of the galaxy at this point, like going back to that conversation in the original Star Wars movie when they're talking about that, when Moff Tarkin finally comes in and announces, and remember this is 5 years after this, but Grand Moff Tarkin comes into that room and announces the Emperor has dissolved the Senate. It's impossible how we control the systems without the bureaucracy. Regional governors will now have direct control over this, right? So that's 5 years later. So
right.
Basically speaking, the Senate system was still completely in place, and the wealthy got more wealthy. Hence, like when the family showed up, that one line of dialogue mentioning, hey, the Empire's really getting things done. The money's flowing. Everything's going good, right? So I kind of got a sense that it would have been out of place for those types of discussions to happen on Alderaan. Like, because even when the Grand Inquisitor shows up, he's like, because remember, as a senator, even within the Empire, an Imperial senator is nothing to be sneezed at. And the Grand Inquisitor shows up and basically says, Riva, are you effing kidding me? You kidnapped an Imperial senator's daughter. Are you nuts? Like, even the Grand Inquisitor himself is like, we can't do this. So I kind of felt that was all covered in that. I don't think it would have been in place or felt natural if they had gone into that.
I think that they had to set up, I felt that there needed to be some sense that the world had changed and it was not good.
But I think that other places in the galaxy did that. I don't think they should have done that on Alderaan. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I mean,
because remember, Alderaan was kind of a favored nation state within the Empire until the betrayal of Bail Organa.
Right. But it was. But I mean, I did feel that I just wanted something more there that gave me a little bit more world, because he's like, you know, one day you're going to rule. You know, and it would have been interesting if she had questioned and said, look, Father, I understand that, but I'm not stupid. The universe is changing.
She's never been off Alderaan, though.
Well, that's true.
Remember, they mentioned that
but
she's never been off world.
She'd be educated about all this. She was a smart kid.
But again, life was a little bit different on Alderaan than everywhere else.
That's true.
And I got to say, while I was mildly surprised that they brought in Leia that early.
I was, by the way, I was shocked.
Oh, were you shocked?
I had no idea. I don't know if I've been, not reading Reddit enough, but I was had no idea that, and it was funny because I'd done a mailbag earlier in the day, and one of the
asking the question,
and I was like, well, maybe I would assume so, but it never, like, I had no idea when you cut to Alderaan. I'm like, wow, this is really cool because you're seeing this beautiful bucolic city and the great grand palace she lives in the woods and all that. I didn't know that was coming.
I got to tell you, that little girl, I'm not big on child actors.
Right.
Like, they're a necessary evil in a lot of places. And sometimes you just hope they're not so distracting that whatever. But I will tell you what, that little girl absolutely convinced me she was a young Leia Organa.
Oh, yeah.
Like, 100% she convinced me of that. And when I first realized we're about to see, like right now, we're about to see little Leia, and she's going to play a bigger role in this than I thought, I'm like, okay, here we go. But I'm telling you what, she, like, instantly too, like, even as she's talking to Obi-Wan, she's like, all right, well, we're doing this. And she starts walking off, and Obi-Wan's like, what the? And he starts following behind her. You remind me of somebody, like, obviously of her mother, Padme. And I was just like, okay, I am all in on this little girl. I'm all in on the little girl. And I love the dynamic. And I hope the rest of the series is not just about Obi-Wan trying to get her back to Bail. I hope it evolves past that. But for what it is right now, I got to say, I'm really digging it.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing, the criticism that I would have is, the running around on this, I don't know the name of the planet they went to.
I can't remember either.
But again, when she's running off, and Obi-Wan has to give chase, I was like, they like to do this, like with Boba Fett and Book of Boba Fett running around after that droid in the kitchen.
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like, look, even she would know I am in a completely hostile environment. And like you pointed out, she's never been off Alderaan. She's in a place where this isn't exactly safe. And clearly, Obi-Wan Kenobi didn't kidnap her. She was kidnapped. And that was, I kind of like the fact it was Flea.
I'm not going to lie to you. At first, I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Is that Flea?
Yeah, I was like, okay. But it's just, again, you have the Grand Inquisitors or Reva hiring. These guys were kind of boobs.
They got the job done.
They did get the job done, but I felt like these guys were kind of like one step away from being low rent. I wish that these criminals, like, to me, I want to see, Michael Mann criminals, like Robert De Niro and his crew from Heat, and that they came in and pulled this off because, and they were all right, but the fact when you saw them later, they're all like stoned and it's all, and I wanted.
The job was over. They had, and by the way, they almost took out Obi-Wan.
Yeah, that's true.
And let me skip to that for a second about that whole thing with Obi-Wan. I love the fact that they are not just ignoring that Obi-Wan, I don't care how good he was. He's 10 years out of practice.
Right.
And the fact that he gets into a fight and he gets hit. He lands a punch. He's like, damn it. And he struggles. Like, he still wins. He's still Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
But he struggles. And I love the fact that she falls off the building and it's not, he hasn't used the Force in like 10 years.
I did love that.
So it's not just a matter of but barely got her in time. And I think we're going to see an evolution here in two different ways with Obi-Wan. In one way, we're going to see an evolution of Obi-Wan in becoming the Obi-Wan we see again in Alec Guinness. He's the more snarky, more happy, we're going to see, because right now he's kind of miserable. We're going to see through this adventure, he's going to get back to being himself. And we're also about to see, without a Rocky montage, we're about to see him again evolve to the point where he is going to get back in touch with the Jedi warrior that he is.
Right.
And that is really exciting. One other big problem I have with it. And again, I think episode 1 is not just maybe the first or second best episode of Star Wars television we've had on Disney Plus. I think it's a top 3 or 4 best episode on Disney Plus, period. Like, that's how good I think episode 1 was. And I like episode 2.
Yeah.
But my one other big problem is, if you read the other quote unquote canon material in Star Wars, and I use that term loosely, but Star Wars stories and Star Wars canon had made it pretty clear. Nobody knew Vader was Anakin. Grand Admiral Thrawn figured it out.
Right.
Tarkin figured it out. Vader nearly killed Thrawn when he suspected that he knew.
Well, obviously Palpatine knew.
Yeah, well, and then obviously Palpatine. But I mean, that Reva just knew. Oh, hey, what, you didn't know? Anakin Skywalker's alive, Obi-Wan. I'm like, oh, wait, no.
Yeah.
No, she would, just a low-ranking Inquisitor that Vader will slice up and throw like yesterday's garbage. They know. That just rubbed me a little bit wrong, but I'll get over it. I will, but that just rubbed me a little bit wrong at the moment.
No, I agree. I mean, I think that those kinds of revelations, again, this happens a lot with these franchises that have a lot of tie-in fiction. Certainly it's true of Star Trek, Doctor Who, even games like Warcraft. They've got lots of Warhammer. They have lots of these tie-in fiction books that add to the lore. And like you said, that bothered me a lot. Because if she knows, who else knows? Does everybody know?
Do all the Inquisitors know?
And I would think that would be something that you'd keep pretty close to the vest. And what, does she have like a relationship with Palpatine? Hey, let me tell you how the Darth Vader really is. I mean, I didn't like it. They
just got drunk one night and he accidentally let it slip.
Yeah.
I mean, they might come up with, again, we're only 2 episodes in. I am completely leaving the door open that we're going to have something else revealed in the upcoming episodes that will explain that and justify that she knew. So we'll give the benefit of the doubt for now.
I mean, she's working for him.
Yeah.
She's working literally for Vader. She's an agent to Vader that she hasn't told anybody this yet, but that's why that's why she feels that she can get away with killing the Grand Inquisitor.
I can't remember. Did Dr. Aphra, for those of you guys in the live chat who know Dr. Aphra, I can't remember if Dr. Aphra also figured out that he was Anakin. At any rate, it's all good. But listen, I'll tell you what. The performances from Ewan McGregor, it's everything we could have possibly hoped it would be. I love the performance of that little girl, and I never would have thought I would say that. The actor who's playing Uncle Owen, why am I free? He's fantastic. Joel Edgerton, who, by the way, if you never saw him in Warrior,
he was like you said, he's great as Owen Lars.
Fabulous performer. I was so excited when they said they were bringing him back for this. Him as I will go back and just watch his scenes again. Like his confrontation with Obi-Wan, his confrontation with Reva, just absolutely magnificent. And I mean, again, the world expansion, all that kind of stuff. I'm telling you what, while I didn't like episode 2 as much as 1, as a collective, the first 2 episodes, I think, got us off to a very good start.
I would agree with that.
And I find myself, unlike, say, Boba Fett, I found myself now really freaking excited for episode 3, and I cannot wait to see where they go.
Yeah.
Anyway, before we go over and start taking the live questions from everybody, any final thoughts there?
Well, I thought when I finished episode 1, I was very pleased. And my problem with episode 2 is it felt like they didn't quite know which direction to go in. I mean, Camille Nanjiani's character, that felt like it was kind of like, well, we have to write certain things that happen. And I would have been much more interested in focusing more on the Inquisitors. Who did they know? What was their network?
I don't think we've seen the last of him, though.
No, we haven't. But I mean, I would like to. They didn't need to give us some secondary stunt casting character. I would like to have seen more about, like, give me, are they reporting to Palpatine? Are we going to see Palpatine? Don't we have to at some point?
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, I wish that we just had more of that.
And but I will say this, though. Let me throw that out there and saying that, keeping in mind and being cognizant of the fact that we've only watched the first 2 episodes, there may come a time in episodes 3, 4, 5, or 6 where Camille's character is involved again. And for us to fully grasp what's going on in it, we have to know this was a guy that was ready to die for Obi-Wan. Right. So all that stuff that happened here may end up becoming important background for what's coming. I don't know that it will. It may have just been a total waste, but I'm trying to keep an open mind to that.
It brings up one other thing. The Benny Safdie.
Yep, the Jedi.
I did not like how, like, he came to Obi-Wan for help, was basically Obi-Wan said no, and he winds up hung in the street. I mean, that guy was a Jedi. And I felt like, if anybody, he was really thrown out to dry. Yeah. And I did not like that. I wish that there was more going on there.
What part of that you didn't?
Well, I think he deserved some kind of help. Like, there should have been some. He was coming to Obi-Wan for aid. They were hunting him down. The Inquisitors found him in that bar, and he was on the run. I mean, I would think that Jedi at this point would be some of the more valuable people in the universe, considering there are very few of them left. And all of that training and being that strong with the Force, it seemed like they casually, like, Kenobi should have done more to help him.
But then
again, I understand he felt, I can't compromise. I want to help you, but Luke is more important and Leia is more important.
Well, and I think the whole point of that scene was for us, the audience, because I don't think we as the audience would have fully we wouldn't have fully understood where Obi-Wan was at.
Right.
Were it not for that scene.
No,
to see
it's
truly
true.
How broken he had become, how defeated he really was. And even then, when it passed on to then having a discussion with Bail Organa, that even Bail Organa calls him on his BS. It's like, no, I can't leave the boy. I can't leave the boy. It's like, it's more than that. It's not just you got to keep an eye on the boy.
You're right.
The boy's been fine for 10 years. It's more than that. And I don't know that I really, as an audience member, I would have totally had the complete picture of just how broken he was, unless he's confronted with a Jedi who needs his help and he says, go into the desert, bury your lightsaber, and just go blend in somewhere. Like
that's a good point. But then again, also, Leia would be just as important as Luke. I mean, there's female Jedi.
Well, that's what Bail was trying to, and I think ultimately you're right, because I think ultimately Obi-Wan acknowledges that.
Yeah.
Because he was using Luke as an excuse
A crutch.
to stay hidden.
Yep.
And I think the point you raised there is exactly why he then went, okay, I'm going to go. And off he goes.
By the way, I love that one shot. It was a low angle shot where you see him walking onto the transport.
Yeah.
At the end of episode 1, and you see his lightsaber just dangling there.
Yeah, it's like, he's sort of back.
Yeah,
he's sort of. By the way, his natural internal GPS is amazing that he was able to find those. Like, I didn't see any distinguishing landmarks anywhere in that desert. He said, I think I buried my lightsabers right here.
He's probably he probably used the Force, man.
He's got a GPS.
Yeah.
You put an Apple AirTag on your lightsabers if you're going to do that. All right. Listen, by the way, we didn't even talk about the Vader appearance at the end. Like Buff Vader in his healing Bacta tank.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
That, I mean, just a little tease.
And there he is.
Yeah, I mean, that shot in and of itself. But when the camera pulled back from that, and like he looks horrifying.
Yeah.
Like absolutely horrifying. It was good to see. So I'm thinking we're a third of the way through. I mean, that isn't that weird. These freaking 6
weird.
episodes. We're already 1/3 of the way through this show, but that was pretty cool too. Okay, guys, here's what we're going to do. We're now going to move on and start taking the live questions you guys have been sending in, and we're going to address those. But before we get to those, we first want to take a second and thank the sponsor of this after show, my new service, which we're going to do that in just a second because we don't have it queued up yet. So fact checker Jonathan's going to go and get that. We're about to thank our friends at Mint Mobile, but we don't have it ready yet. You know how to pull that in and then drop it in, right?
If you go to Super Chat, I'll flag it.
Okay, so we're going to start first by going into our super chats, and we're going to take the first few questions from you guys. Let's go a little bit lower because I'm just seeing the top of Hitchcock is the GOAT. I think we got to go.
That was from earlier, Top Gun.
Oh, what's that?
That's just from Top Gun.
Oh, wait a second.
Right
So-
here starts Obi-Wan.
Is that where Obi-Wan starts? Okay. Jerome writes, the situation with Leia and Obi-Wan is something I've seen in some other stories lately when someone doesn't trust the person they're trying to save them. Yeah, that's not an entirely brand new story trope.
No.
Like that's a story trope that has been done before and has been used before. Absolutely. Like you don't know if you can trust a person. And honestly, for a little girl, like you've never been off world, you're scared. Now you think this guy is, I mean, adults aren't supposed to be bad to you. You just had all these adults double cross you and betray you and be mean to you.
Kidnap
Now you think this guy is thinking you're running. It's like, yeah, but that's kind of a standard story trope. Okay, next up. We got Murray Reich who writes, I decided to try out for the first time group watch for Obi-Wan. For the most part, it was good. I just wish we can have a small thumbnail pic to see each other when reacting. I honestly don't know what it is you're talking about, Murray.
Maybe that's on a feature on Disney Plus. Like you can watch as
Because I know you can do that with Netflix. You can do these.
Yeah, you can do it with Netflix.
watch parties.
I've never done that with. I've never done a watch party at all. So
I've tried doing it before with certain success, certain not. These things really do have a lot of bugs they got to still work out. Okay, next up we have, where were we at here? We were just at Murray Reich?
yeah.
Okay, so after Murray Reich, we've got Sam Fisher who writes, I'm confused. Isn't Vader Palpatine's second in command? Shouldn't everyone know who Darth Vader is? I thought he was some sort of Empire boogeyman. Well, knowing that there is a Darth Vader and knowing who Darth Vader is are two very, very different issues. Like, how did you expect to see?
I would. That's exactly right. Darth Vader is Darth Vader. That's an entity that people understand. He rolls into a room. You listen to him, but people don't know who's under the mask, where he came from. You know, they don't know anything about him, really. They just know he's a badass and he will choke you out if you say something wrong.
All right. There's one that came in a little bit earlier here. So let me just get to these. PR wrote in younglings in start of episode 1. One of them is Reva. Yeah, that was clearly Reva at the beginning of it. So I didn't know if, when we realized that Reva had such a hate on for Obi-Wan, I was expecting that we're going to see another flashback where maybe Obi-Wan missed her and maybe failed to save her, but then finding out it was really more about her ambition and just wanting to get in good with the boss.
Well, there's that line they talk about how many of the Inquisitors were once Jedi.
Yeah.
So,
And we're going to find that she was captured in that thing there and ready to go. All right. Now we are going to take a second and thank the sponsor of this after show, my new phone service, your next phone service, our friends over at Mint Mobile. Guys, we want to thank the sponsor of today's video, Mint Mobile. You know, the one with the delightful ads with good Canadian kid Ryan Reynolds. So look, after years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I first heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them and using their service, it all made sense. There isn't a catch. And guys, that's no joke, because for years I've been using one of the major providers and it was fine. But I switched over to Mint Mobile a little while ago. The service has been fantastic. And the big difference is I'm now paying about 1/3 of what I was paying before. And the best part for anybody who just hates their phone bills is that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. All of their plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone number along with all your existing contacts. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. And thank you to our friends at Mint Mobile for sponsoring this episode here on the John Campea channel. All right, let's keep on going with your questions now here. Next up, we got Brandon Barrett. I'm sorry. We've got another one from Sam Fisher who writes, the homeless clone vet kind of broke my heart. Was that clone Rex? Harloff thought it was Rex based on the color of his armor. I don't think so. Obviously, Rex would have immediately recognized Obi-Wan, and he did not. So
right.
I'm thinking it's kind of hard to believe that
it
was
hard. I forgot about that. It was heartbreaking. I'm like, oh man, even clones get screwed over.
Well, they were all suddenly unemployed.
Yeah.
All right, next up. We've got the Brandon Barrett writes, hey guys, why the Empire switched from clone troopers to stormtroopers? You know, I don't really know. I think there was something in one of the pieces of fiction, I think there was something about, well, I mean, if the clones could have been automatically programmed to institute Order 66, number one, destroy all the evidence. Number two, you don't want to risk something like that going in reverse. Time to get back into real people, I guess. Have you heard?
I don't know the answer, but also when you start recruiting from your own ranks, you know, you're shaping your own population. You're turning soldiers into, or you're turning your population into the soldiers you want them to be, as opposed to having clones. I mean, what's the connection to your society?
Right.
They belong to another bunch of people.
All right. Next up, we've got Alex Von Gollum writes, to me, Deborah Chow nailed 100% the emotional state and mindset of Obi-Wan. His brokenness made me emotional. Ewan is giving a stellar performance. Ewan is giving an absolutely remarkable performance. And the way that Deborah Chow has kind of crafted this world right now and his story at this moment, I think has been fantastic. So I can't wait to see where the rest of it goes. All right. Next up, we got Sam Fisher who writes, did you catch the 3PO cameo during the party? He was the protocol droid we see translating between two groups, said it was him in the captions. Yeah,
Yep.
So we had, I don't know why for me, but the audio, the dialogue audio tracks are noticeably lower than the sound mix and everything else too. So I got to have the captions on. But yeah, it's when we saw 3PO there, it said C3PO, it said captions. I'm like, oh, okay. How did he get there? All right, I guess he had to run up there at some point. Did you catch that when you were watching it?
Yeah, I mean, when I was watching it, I was like, wow, that's 3PO. I mean, right away, I do, because he was polished up. He looked good.
Yep, he looked all gold and shiny.
He's regal and royal.
All right, next up, Murray Reich writes, I find it odd that a bunch of bounty hunters couldn't stop Leia the first few times trying. LOL, Cad Bane would have had her in seconds. Well, the one thing I remember thinking to myself was this. That's her territory. She probably knows those woods, every branch, every twig, everything. So the fact that she was able to evade them for a moment, I was okay with.
Me too, because she hides from the people that work for her parents all the time.
She probably slips her own guards probably a lot. So,
yeah.
And ultimately she did not get away from them. Ultimately, She didn't get away from them. All right, next up. We got Phil who writes, great start to the show. Part 1 definitely better than part 2, but not a bad start. And what about Leia with that sassy? At least we know it will continue right into the original films. Again, I was a little bit worried at first. I ain't gonna lie. I was a little bit worried at first when we see a little girl, little child actor. I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. This is the weak link. But again, within minutes, I was like, this is young Leia.
Yeah.
This is so her. I totally bought into it, man. All right. Thanks a lot for sending that, Phil. Next up, Sam Fisher writes, I love that Ewan is sounding more like Alec. He is starting to evolve a little. But I mean, he did in the prequels too,
Yes,
right?
He did.
Did you even notice that one part? I think it was in the town square right when Reva shows up and Owen's in the scene too. Like I think that was the scene. Then Obi-Wan is kind of watching from afar and he's doing this even little Alec Guinness.
Yes. Oh, yes.
These little mannerisms in there. Oh,
Absolutely.
that was good to see. All right. Next up, we've got Chris Miner who writes, Alderaan looks really cool and pretty. I really hope nothing happens to it like getting blown up. I mean, yeah, that is... When you see the lushness and the beauty of it, and just the dichotomy of the advanced technology civilization in woods and forests, like this is a civilization have really balanced. This is the first real time we've really seen it,
Absolutely.
up close and personal. What was your impression?
Well,
of it?
I love that. I mean, they definitely conveyed a civilization that's in harmony with nature. You know, it wasn't like Coruscant. You had these cities that were built into nature, and it seemed like they had a harmonious existence with, I mean, if they wanted to make it belching with smoke, it wasn't like that at all. And it was quite a beautiful place. It looked magical, like Camelot or something from Camelot.
Yeah, it was like a sci-fi Camelot,
Yeah,
right?
that's how I
a
felt
perfect
it.
illustration. All right, next up. King Roman writes, I like how they've broken down character of Obi-Wan. I hope by the end they start to build him up towards becoming the stoic old wizard we know. But I don't just want stoic old wizard. I want him to have that. He's got a little sass of his own.
Right.
When we get to Alec Guinness, he got a little, but your uncle wouldn't have it. You know, stuff like that. That's what I was saying a little bit earlier, right? I think we're about to see two journeys for Obi-Wan. One, finding that his personality again and getting back to that, and then two, finding his power again. Mm-hmm. So I'm completely with you on that, man. That's exactly where I think they're going to go with it. All right, next up. Murray Reich writes, is this the real main Inquisitor? Because if it is, they retconned Rebels. You know what? I need to go back. So clearly it's not the same guy. I need to go back and revisit Rebels, because it's been a couple of years since I've seen the whole thing with the Inquisitor and Rebels, and I can't remember exactly. Maybe the Inquisitor we see in Rebels succeeds this one.
Maybe, or they just fix him. I mean, in this civilization, you can get run through with a lot of things and they still fix you. You know, you're on Tatooine. You can go to definitely, or maybe they weren't on Tatooine at the time, but you can go to one of the mod shops and have somebody replace your insides.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know. I'm keeping half an eye in the live chat too to see.
You can get cut in half in this civilization. They can put you back together.
I mean, Michael Gonzalez is saying maybe he didn't die. Like Reva might have run him through, but he may not have necessarily died. I mean, I suppose she didn't cut him in half or anything.
No.
And even when you get cut in half by a lightsaber, apparently that doesn't kill you either.
No.
Like AKA Darth Maul. All right. What's next? We've got Sam Fisher writes, I think the last scene of the show is going to be Ben finally connecting to Qui-Gon. Whether that means we will see Liam Neeson, I don't know. I have zero doubt we're going to see Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
Because if you watch, just go back and watch the previously on Star Wars opening of the show, right? What does it end with? Training I have for you.
Yeah.
To talk to your old master, Liam Neeson. Come on. They just told us he's going to be there.
Obi-Wan has a particular set of skills now.
Yes. I mean, is there is there even a 0.01% doubt that Liam Neeson's going to be? Like, you don't say that at the opening and then not have him there.
No, we're going to see Neeson's.
And I think it's going to be before the very end because, look, we've already seen Obi-Wan calling out to him for help a couple of times. So it may be in the last episode, but I have a feeling the ghost of Qui-Gon Jinn, if the Force ghost appearing to him, is going to be something that helps him and enables him to carry out whatever the end game of the series is. Yeah. So it's not going to be a final scene sort of thing. I think it's going to be earlier than that.
I agree. I think you're right.
All right. Next up. We've got A-Rod, 2006 writes, the sheer look of horror in Kenobi's eyes when he realizes Anakin is still alive. Immediately one of my top 5 favorite Star Wars scenes. All right. I was just saying, I didn't like that she so casually knew that Anakin was Vader, right? But I'll give it this. It created a great moment because Anakin, against Obi-Wan, the panic, the panic, the anxiety in his face, his breathing picks up. He's almost paralyzed for a moment from that. Like it was a great moment for Ewan McGregor in that spot. So I may not have liked, or I need them to do some explaining in the next couple of episodes as to how she knows. But the fact that she knows I got to give it to him. It created a great moment for him.
Yeah, because I mean, imagine if you're Obi-Wan Kenobi and the last time you saw Anakin Skywalker, you thought he was dead. Like there was no life left in him. No one could survive that. And the fact that he did survive it means there are some powerful dark forces at work. Powerful dark forces that maybe Obi-Wan can't surmount. So the danger for him has been ratcheted up immensely.
All right. Next up, we've got my hero?
Sam Fisher.
Oh, Sam Fisher writes, I didn't think that we would see Leia or Bail, but we should have expected it. What else logical could take Ben away from Luke other than Leia being in danger? Well, I remember saying like a year or two ago, I totally see the Obi-Wan show. He has to go off world on some kind of adventure.
I remember when you said that.
I didn't necessarily think it was going to be for Leia.
Right.
But you're right. We all should have seen this coming.
I mean, what? That's the obvious thing. It's funny to me that like when she shows up, of course, I'm like, of course that would be it, and indeed it was, because what else would cause him? There is another. That's the only thing that could possibly get him to go away. So
all right.
It just never occurred to me.
Next up, Hero 75 writes, my only major issue is that the Inquisitor knew Vader is Anakin. In every other media, book, comic books, Vader kills anyone who finds out the truth. He almost killed Thrawn over it in a book. I was just saying that exact thing. It's like, because in all the other stuff that Star Wars says is canon, the fact that Vader is Anakin and Anna is vacant is a very lethally close kept secret.
Yes.
And you don't want to find out. You don't want to be one of the people that knows, because it will not work out well for you. Like even Tarkin and Vader, who had a mutual respect of one another, even they didn't come out and just talk about it. So you're Anakin, huh? Like even they did not have that conversation. So, I mean, again, I am leaving the door open that in further episodes, we will find out that there is actually a narrative rationale for that.
Yes.
And because you were pointing out, maybe he's even like her secret hand. Right, she's his secret hand. Right?
I absolutely think that she is. I think that they're totally in cahoots.
And kind of in some way, kind of like the Star Killer in one of the other Star Wars stories,
yes.
Right? Little Sam Witwer shout out there.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, next up. We've got PR who writes, younglings in start of episode one of them is Reva. Absolutely, there's no doubt about that. I think we all kind of picked that up to PR, so I think you're right about that. Sam Fisher writes, Reva is definitely one of the younglings in scene one. Well, I mean, it's also the fact that she's the one of them that says, let's get out of here. She's the one in the center of the frame, totally focused in. That was clearly Reva.
What if we find out that Anakin rescued her? And Anakin, that somehow they've had a bond.
Well, she does get captured. Like I believe they capture younglings and they give them a choice. You can die or you can work for us.
Yeah, and maybe she encountered Anakin recognized her power.
Yeah.
And pulled her aside and said, you know what, she's working for us.
He was there. He was there killing a lot of kids.
But even after that, even after he'd been Vaderized, and came across her, she was training to become an Inquisitor or whatever, and he's like, you know what?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we do another flashback of the Order 66 in Jedi Temple, and like she's about to get killed, and Anakin goes, "Not that one."
Right.
And then who knows?
I can definitely see that. That would explain it all.
You know what I am wondering? If in the midst of all these Order 66 at the Jedi Temple elimination things, if we are finally going to see who gets Grogu out. That's the first thing that went through my head, because remember, Grogu was there in the Jedi Temple when Order 66 happened. So I cannot help but wonder if at some point in these flashbacks, we're going to see what happened to him. I hope we do.
Ooh, I like that.
All right. Next up, we got Alex Von Gollum who writes, I'm digging Ingram's performance. I feel the flatness in parts of her performance is not Deborah's mistake, but the actual state/mindset of the character. Her impulsiveness reminds me of Maul. Yeah, Maul didn't talk a lot. And when they did, they had a different actor voice him. But I don't know. I agree with you. It's I think at the end of the day, my issue is that it's one note.
That's the thing. For me,
Whether
it was-
she's talking to the townspeople or she's talking to the fifth brother or she's talking to the Grand Inquisitor, it's one note every time. And maybe that's what's causing it feeling really flat to me.
Yeah, I think that's the case. There's not, look, she's playing a villain. You know, no disintegrations.
Right.
You know, you gotta have a little fun with that. I mean, she had hacked off the hand of a civilian. You know, she's not. I want a little bit more from her, but maybe we'll get.
I
more
get it.
from
They're
her.
channeling a little bit of. Here's when she was first on screen. She first started talking. I got a little bit of Stringer Bell, right? And that's good, except that Stringer Bell was also really nuanced and had a lot of different levels, right? Whereas I just felt like they kind of kept that level through the entire thing. But again, let's see where they're going with it.
Because look, Star Wars villains. Everything in the Star Wars universe was set in stone in the first movie. When Vader says, if this is a consular ship, where is the ambassador? You know, and he knows that people are screwing around with him, and he, you know, tear the ship apart until you find those plans. Bring me the passengers. I want them alive. I mean, I want that. I want that kind of that decisive action where Vader's kind of enjoying it at the beginning of Star Wars. He likes rolling into those ships or wherever he's going with his garrison of troops and screws with the.
Now, he's also all business.
It's all business. But,
All right, next up, we've got Sam Fisher who writes, I really like the girl playing Leia. I have fallen in love with that little girl.
Yeah.
That little girl is great. PR writes, wild theory, but Haja is secretly one of the many copies of Kingo that are scattered across the universe. There we go. It's the final. It's Patton Oswalt's wet dreams come true. It's the crossover of Marvel and Star Wars all done through Kingo. The immortal Kingo. That's going to be the big plot twist. He actually is a Jedi. Plot twist. He's a Jedi hiding by pretending he's a Jedi.
actually, I like that idea.
We're going to, at the end of the day, he's
like
actually a
that idea.
Jedi. We'll find out.
That's why he's always asking people if they have magnets.
Oh, yeah, that's funny.
Do you have magnets?
That wasn't Magnus. Murray Reich writes, how did Reva know who Darth Vader is? Again, Murray, that's the $1 billion question right now. Let's see if they answer that in the future episodes. Brandon Barrett writes, Reva yelling at Obi, I will find you, just made me think of great Michael Shannon yelling at Lara, I will find him. I will find him. Where are you? You can't get away. I will say this, though. At the end, there's an automated cargo ship. Just takes off. It's like, wouldn't it be kind of easy enough just to go get
Call
it?
it back? Yeah,
Like pick up the radio. Hey, there's a ship taking off from here.
Please bring that ship back.
Go intercept it. I mean, is it really that hard? I don't know. Whatever. Plot device. Okay. Jamie Sundays writes. Let's see. Star Wars is getting me treated like the MCU, which to me is like fast food of cinema. Cheaply made. Cheaply? Really? Cheaply? Okay. Cheaply, I mean, there's a lot of potential criticisms you can have of the MCU.
Yeah.
Cheaply ain't one of them. Anyway, cheaply made, rushed storylines, useless cameos, uninteresting cinematography. Oh, you're dead wrong on that part. Forgettable score, phoned in acting. Well, hey, listen, here's the great thing about stories on screens. They hit us all in different ways. And if that's the way it hits you, that's the way it hits you. And your perception of it is no less valid than my own. I will just say, what? Like, I don't see it the way you do, but that's the great thing about us all being fans.
But also, you're comparing and contrasting something that 2 hours of, say, Rise of Skywalker will cost in excess of $200 million. And we just saw 2 hours of a TV show that cost a fraction of that.
Yeah.
So you're used to seeing something at the highest of the high ends, and now you're seeing something that has to be manageable, and they have to be able to create it on time and on budget. So it's not cheap.
And again, I want to emphasize this to all the people who would say, but
John, we heard that this carries the same budget as a movie does.
well, sure, yes. If a movie is going to cost $185 million for 2 hours,
Yes.
well, the TV show got $185 million. Yes, but that's for 6 hours or 5.5 hours. So you are literally getting less than half the budget on a per hour basis than those are. So don't be fooled when you hear that this show is going to have the same budget as a movie. Okay, that's not really how it works. It's still, even when they say that, it means significantly less.
Yes.
But anyway, there's that. Okay, next up, we've got Raymond Verrata, who writes, Was it addressed in the books on how Luke would react if he found out Leia was left with a rich family and he was left in the desert? I'd be pissed. No, I don't recall ever coming across. I mean, listen, there are 575 books. I mean, so who knows if somebody wrote something about it? But yeah, at some point, you'd think there would have been a discussion. So wait, Leia, you're my sister. Okay, cool. And like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're the Princess of Alderaan, right? Nice place, Alderaan. Yeah. So yeah, I was left in the desert. You know what it reminds me of? Kate McKinnon's alien abduction sketch in Saturday Night Live. It's like these people say, we were embraced by the light of creation. Yeah, that's not the experience I had. Like, that's a total conversation Luke could have with Leia at this point.
But also, I mean, Leia could probably turn to him and go, yeah, and whose planet's still here?
Yeah, yeah. I was like, yeah, your plan sounds great. Mine's still there. I mean, so I guess that is kind of an advantage. All right, Phil Corvelli writes, do y'all think the Grand Inquisitor is dead? I did at first, but then I remembered how badly Anakin and Maul were injured, so I think it's possible he's still alive. At least I hope so. I'm not gonna lie to you, I kind of hope so too.
Sun Kang's make sure he's alive.
Yeah, Sun Kang will find him and say, what did you do? Although, if he is alive, I don't know what time Reva's going to have left because she's going to have a reckoning.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, but you know what? My assumption was that he was dead. But you guys have all raised very valid points that like, actually he may be. What percentage chance do you give it that he's still alive?
75%.
You're going to go 75% on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go 50. So I'm going to go on a coin toss, a very non-committal coin toss. But I agree. I hope you're right. I hope you're right about that.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, we got Sam Fisher writes, was that really Hayden in the last shot of episode 2? I don't see why it wouldn't be.
I don't either.
I mean, if you're going to bring him back, what's the point of bringing him back if you're not going to have him?
You think he wouldn't want to do that?
Oh, for sure.
He would be like, yeah, mess me up. Show me in the back to tank.
Yeah, I feel pretty good that was probably Hayden in there. I could see the Canadian tone of his skin. All right, next up, let's see. Cody Carroll writes, if Order 66 was kill on sight, how did some Jedi surrender and turn into Inquisitors? Again, I think it's going to have to be a situation of them being found and saying, okay, not that one. And actually, you know what? In Jedi Fallen Order, I believe that's a little bit addressed about how some of these young, because the Inquisitor in Jedi Fallen Order is that she was a Jedi Padawan taken.
Because I mean, it's not like every Jedi is 100% pure. You know, you're in various
And if they
states.
are, you can be broken.
Yeah, you can. Yes, I'm sure that many of them were because they would be valuable. If he could be turned, he would be a valuable asset.
Ally.
Yes,
He can become a powerful ally.
Yes.
All right. Next up, we got Tim Platt who writes, man, needles really hit a rough patch from drag racing to kidnapping kids. LOL. All seriousness, I love it when Flea pops up in a project. Again, look, I'm not gonna lie. For me, it's a little. At first, it's a little off-putting. It's like that's Flea.
Yeah, it was Flea.
It's like the power of my base will keep you prisoner, Princess Leia. Like I expect that gonna have happened, but. Whatever. I listen, I got over it. Like once the shock of that's Flea.
Yes.
Once I got over that, I just got into it and then I saw him as the character. But then again, it was again a little shocking as I'm watching the credits roll and this name, Flea. It just comes up in the credits. I'm like, okay, that's not something you see in a Star Wars credits every day. All right, next up. We got Ryan Gerger. And Ryan Gerger writes, hi, John. Who roasted Obi-Wan harder, the uncle or Leia? Damn. Yeah, Leia laid into him really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, she did great, but it's obviously Owen.
Oh, that was the best.
I mean, like, how'd that turn out? Like, and again, the badassness of Owen Lars. Like, he's very aware. He is facing off against, he's talking to one of the most powerful beings in the universe. General Obi-Wan Kenobi is one of the most powerful beings in the universe. And he's standing there face to face and giving him shit and not taking anything from him. And then he's standing face to face with an Inquisitor who he knows could kill him there on the spot.
Yeah.
Totally defiant. Doesn't break. Like, doesn't beg for his life. Just F you. Like, I ain't telling you nothing. It's like, oh my God, I now want an Uncle Owen show.
Yeah.
I mean,
look, that was a brutal scene when Reva's like, okay, any of you, this man's life is in your hands. Give me the Jedi or I'm going to kill him. I mean, that was pretty brutal. That was a scene I wanted to see more of. I wanted to see her be more than the one note she was. I wanted to see her really play that up.
Yeah, I
That
hope.
scene was still great.
I really hope we have not seen the last of Uncle Owen, because we've now seen every second of him that is in the trailers.
Yeah.
So I hope that's not the last we see.
I don't think we've seen much of anything we're getting.
I think you're right about that. All right, next up, we got Dennis Ellis, who writes, Little Leia outrunning adults seemed a bit far-fetched. Again, I was perfectly fine with it, because once you remember, she's ducking under branch. She knows that landscape.
Yes.
And she didn't ultimately get away. They did get her regardless, but the fact that she could stay one step ahead of them for a few moments, I was actually okay with that, considering it was her home field advantage there. Richard writes, liked how they did a Grogu reveal again with Leia. Didn't expect it, and the actress was great portraying her. I don't know what you mean by a Grogu reveal. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, but anyway, yeah, I totally agree. I was worried about it when I saw that it was going to be, we're going to get a little girl Leia in here, and how bad is this going to make it? She was fantastic in it. I'm actually legitimately looking for it. You know what it was? It was Lady Mormont in Game of Thrones again. It's like, who is this little girl?
Yes.
And holy shit, put more of her on screen, because she's awesome. I want to see more of Leia in this now. All right, next up. CJ Rebirth writes, I loved hearing that Leia reminded Obi-Wan of Padme. Yeah, and it made sense, because look, these call-outs, cameos, whatever, that are forced and shoehorned in, they always take me out of things.
Always.
But in that moment, it made narrative sense that he would say, you remind me of something.
Yeah, I mean, but absolutely it would make narrative sense.
Yes.
Like, you remind me of your mother. I mean, come on.
Yeah, which I thought that was really, really applicable there. All right, next up. Jerome writes, Leia knows she's adopted. Is that a retcon? I think it's in one of, what is the name of the woman who wrote Lost Stars again? Her name's right on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah.
But anyway, that guys in the live chat, help me out. What was the name of the author again who wrote Lost Stars? I can see her face, and I'm freezing on the name. If you know it, write it in there. But she wrote also another novel. I think it was called Bloodlines. That was all about Princess Leia. Of Claudia Gray. Thank you so much, producer Jonathan. And James Argento also threw it into the live chat as well. Claudia Gray wrote another one called Bloodlines about Princess Leia. And I think that's where I can't remember if she finds out basically in Bloodlines, the universe finds out she was Darth Vader's daughter, and that kills her political career. I cannot remember if that's when she finds out herself as well. No. Obviously, she knew before that. She knew in Return of the Jedi, as soon as Luke said to her, you're my sister. And she goes, I know, I think I've always known. But did she as a little girl? Well, no,
Well, her cousin, if she didn't, her cousin's like, you're not even a real.
Well, I mean, yeah, but what we get in Return of the Jedi is that she didn't totally know she was Luke's sister.
No, she didn't know where she came from.
That doesn't necessarily mean she didn't know she was adopted. So it's not necessarily a...
Yeah, I mean, I didn't.
She did say at one point, I have memories of my mother faint, as if they were alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's in Jedi. She says that. But, I'm adopted, and I didn't know I had a 100% biological sister until I was 29 years old.
Right,
I always
yeah.
knew I was adopted. I had no idea I had a sister.
Yeah, so it's a really good question. I might be wrong about this, but I'm going to stick with, I don't think it's a retcon that she knew she was adopted. She didn't know she was Luke Skywalker's sister,
Right.
But did know she was adopted. Again, there might be some evidence contrary to that.
But she even has the conversation with Bale, like, you're my daughter. They have that.
Yeah, I'm
conversation.
not even a real Organa. It's like, yes, you are.
Yes, you are. Yeah, I mean,
I like that. All right. Next up, we got Tim Platt, who writes, did they retcon Rebels by killing off the Grand Inquisitor? Looks like you were right about new canon, though. I really hope that's not what's going on. Look, there are many creative ways. Listen, it's canon retcon that Obi-Wan and Vader are going to face each other again in this series. But there's creative, let's just say there's creative ways to use language, to use semantics, to try to create loopholes to say it makes sense.
yes.
So while on the surface, it seems like that is a retcon of what goes on in Rebels, there are narrative possibilities. Maybe he's still alive. Maybe this happens right before maybe this guy was the Inquisitor before the Rebels Inquisitor. I mean, there's different avenues they can. So I'm not ready to say that it's a retcon or that it's not a retcon at this point. So let's wait and find out. All right. Next up, Raymond Verrata writes, I like the Kenobi logo. The last eye is a lightsaber. Oh, I didn't notice that.
On that logo.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, look at that. I never even noticed that. And it's right here beside me. It's a lightsaber. I thank you for pointing that out. I totally missed that before.
Did Ray do that, or is that the actual show logo?
I think
from here, but if you look under the wide shot here, it's right there too.
yeah, it's right there in the
There you go.
right there. If you look down below there, that is also a little light.
That's very cool. I didn't notice that before.
Thank you for pointing that out. All right, let's keep going here. Next up, we got Sam Fisher, who writes, I love that Obi-Wan said Leia reminded him of Padme, though I thought he was actually going to say Anakin because that defiance was a very Anakin thing. You know what it totally reminded me of? That scene when he says that to her, that was totally original Star Wars, walking out of the trash compactor and then walking down the hallway, barking orders. Okay, this is what we're doing now. And she's like, and everybody's like following behind. It's like, wait a minute, who are you?
Yeah.
Why are we?
Yeah.
And
this
like
is some rescue.
It's like, okay, yeah. And she goes, all right, here's what we're gonna do. And like Obi-Wan is like now falling in step behind her. It's like, oh, okay. Total shout out to that, but no, I can totally see that he was thinking about Padme at that time. All right, Sam Fisher then just sends in $2 to support us. Thank you, Sam. All right, NR99 writes, I loved little Leia. The moment she muttered the like granddaughter maybe. God, I laughed so hard that line. Granddaughter maybe. To Obi-Wan, I felt it was so Carrie Fisher-esque.
Yep.
Everything she said was Carrie Fisher-esque, but yeah, when she first looks at me and goes, you're kind of too old to be a Jedi. It's like, what? And then, is my daughter, granddaughter. I mean, the snark, the sass, and it was just a funny line. I really dug it.
It was a funny line.
Yeah, I can see some people looking at that dialogue and thinking, oh, that's just kind of silly humor. I get it. I laughed my guts out.
Yeah.
When I heard that line, I thought it was great. All right, next up. Let's see. Sam Fisher writes, did you see the character posters for Obi-Wan? Reva has a silhouette of Vader, but the other Inquisitors have Obi-Wan. Does she switch sides? I think so. I don't know. I haven't seen those character posters. At least I don't remember them. Listen, if you had asked me before the first 2 episodes, do I see Reva going back to the good side? Having not, like, before I saw the episodes, I would have thought, yeah, I bet I can see that Inquisitor going good. I don't know that I see that anymore.
Especially
because
because
with
of
4
what
episodes left to go.
and what she's done. Hacking off civilians' hands and hanging Jedi and, you know.
I mean,
of course, then again, after you've killed billions of people like Darth Vader, you get to have your soul redeemed at the end.
But again, it runs the risk of being a little bit too similar to Fallen Order because that Inquisitor, eventually she starts to soften a little bit. And then Vader's like, That, by the way, how awesome is that moment in the game? But I don't just see them doing a rinse and repeat of that.
No.
So I think she stays bad, but we'll find out. But the thing is, we've only got 4 episodes to go, so it would have to be a very rapid turnaround. All right, good question though. Next up, Sam Fisher writes, of course, Bail is the kind of father to encourage Leia to do reckless stuff like climb a tree and go starship watching. Can I just say, after the mom brings her to where they're supposed to be right on time, I love that Bail immediately knows she was starship watching.
Yeah.
And like immediately starts going into about the ship she saw that day. There was something so sweet and innocent and beautiful about that for him as a parent. And it kind of gives you a little sense of the type of love that Leia grew up with. I loved that. What did you make?
I loved it too. I thought it was great. I mean, those moments were great. You know, like I did, even though I said I wanted a little bit more of the geopolitical situation in the galaxy. I wanted to know more about that. I still loved the Bail Organa Leia. Their relationship was great.
Yeah, it was really special. It felt beautiful. All right, next up, we got Daniel Dang who writes, Liam Neeson pulled an Andrew Garfield with his public denial of being in the show. He's definitely going to show up. I don't recall him denying it.
Yeah, I don't either, but
I mean, I'm not saying he didn't. We very well may have even talked about it ourselves, but I have zero doubt. I have no insider information, but just ending the the previously on with training I have for you. I'm like, okay, well, you might as well have just told us.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, so I don't know. We'll see. All right, next up. Sam Fisher writes, did these kidnappers not frisk anyone? Well, they probably didn't think a little girl was going to have much honor.
Yeah, no.
But I loved your batteries not included. I didn't even think about that. You're so right.
I said that it's funny because I was saying that this morning when I was driving into work. I was on the phone, and a lot of people don't know what you're talking about. You talk batteries not included, but somebody today, on the live chat said the same thing. And
that's a good
the first thing that I thought of when I saw that floating thing around, I'm like, is batteries not included canonical to Star Wars?
Star Wars?
Because that movie, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, there is a movie called Batteries Not Included,
which I liked a lot as a kid.
Yeah, it's a wacky movie about these living flying saucers,
these alien little flying saucers that this poor neighborhood
and I think ILM did the effects.
I wouldn't be surprised.
So that totally was an homage to Batteries Not Included.
Had to be. It's an adorable little robot too. What was the name of it?
I don't know.
Lily or Lola?
I think it was upset when it got destroyed.
Yeah. All right. Jerome writes, would you consider how Obi-Wan is being portrayed so far similar to Luke in The Last Jedi? How some feel Luke's story should have went? Listen, I'm one of the few people out there that when I see people complain about how they portrayed Luke, and look, I don't think The Last Jedi is one of the better Star Wars movies, but when I see people complain about that, I like my first thing I want to do is, have you seen Star Wars? Like, have you seen any of the Star Wars movies before? Because if you have, you know that this is absolutely Luke, and where he is at, and what Luke has seen, and what the experiences Luke has been through, and what he understands has happened to the rest of the universe because of his own personal family lineage, and blah, blah, blah. And if you don't get that, I don't know that you understand Star Wars. That's a little gatekeeperish of me. I totally acknowledge it is. I absolutely do.
Now, you're not preventing somebody from Star Wars.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm just saying. I'm like, wait a minute. So whatever. But the idea that, yeah, we're finding a very defeated Obi-Wan.
But he was definitively defeated. I mean, my God, they let Palpatine in the door. Literally, and didn't know what he was doing right underneath them. The Jedi failed.
They literally had face-to-face meetings with it and didn't see it right in front of them.
And their whole order was wiped out by these clones that Obi-Wan Kenobi found.
That's right. I never even thought that. I brought them here.
I went to Camino, and now I brought the Grand Army of the Republic to Coruscant.
They're now killing the Jedi.
I mean, if anyone's responsible, he's directly responsible for the deaths of. It's bad news.
You know what? It's all Dex's fault. Because he told him about the cloners
on Camino.
They're cloners. It's all his fault. Fuck Dex. All right. There's a t-shirt for you. Hashtag fuck Dex. It's all his fault. All right. Next up, we got Sam Fisher, who writes, I have to believe that part of Leia being so intuitive to the way people feel and her easily breaking them down has to do with her force sensitivity. I think that's a very good observation.
Absolutely. 100%.
Like, you're right. Like, because I was picked up on this, like, holy crap, she's like seeing right through Obi-Wan already. And she's able to see right through her cousin and see right through. You know what? I confess, I didn't even think about that during the show, but Sam, that's a perfectly good explanation for that.
I don't know, 100%.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right about that. All right, next up. King Tantic writes, okay, the Grand Inquisitor is dead? I thought he died to Vader in Rebels. Is this a fake out or are they retconning Rebels? Again, thanks guys. Again, we've kind of gone over this already, but again, let's see what happens in the next few episodes. Yeah. There are different possibilities narratively that has happened, but it's not retconning anything. So let's just see how it plays out, and then we'll discuss that again a little later. But it's a valid question, man. NR99 writes, I love that chunk of the footage shown in the marketing are from these 2 episodes. Makes us going nearly blind for the rest of the series. I wish all movies and series trailers did this. Listen, it is something that Disney has been doing with their Disney Plus shows. Mm-hmm. We are finding that in all the marketing of these Disney Plus shows, we watch the first episode or 2 and realize, we've already seen everything that was in those trailers. Because you're right, Rob, we are now flying blind the rest of the way.
Which I love.
So where do you think we're going from here now? Because now I don't know. I mean, obviously we're going to get Vader at some point, but I mean,
I think I think that Ben is going to have to, well, pardon me, Obi-Wan is going to have to find Anakin. Now that he knows that Anakin's alive, he's got to confront him.
Well, I was going to ask that. Because so they're going to confront and fight. Does Obi-Wan find him, or is Obi-Wan brought before him? Is Obi-Wan captured and then brought before him?
One way or another. I mean, I think that he's going to deliver Leia back. Because remember, no one knows that Leia is Vader's daughter.
Right.
They don't. The Grand
Vader doesn't even know she's
No,
alive.
it doesn't even know. So the Inquisitor just thought, okay, who do I know? You know, that Obi-Wan Kenobi has a relationship with Bail Organa. So that was what that was all about. Well, once Kenobi's been smoked out, it worked, you know, and so whatever's going to happen, the Inquisitor doesn't care about Leia. Reva doesn't care about Leia. She cares about Obi-Wan. So I think that Obi-Wan realizes that in order to protect Leia, he'll probably have to go with her or something. You know, there's going to have to be, and I think Obi-Wan's going to want to go with her because she's going to take him before Vader. And he's going to want to be like,
well, see, that's what I was asking. Is like, do you think Anakin or do you think Obi-Wan finds him, or do you think Obi-Wan is brought to him?
I think Obi-Wan's probably going to be brought to him, but I think it's going to be Obi-Wan's choice to be brought to him because the kids aren't safe. He split these kids apart thinking that Anakin's dead. And if Anakin's alive, these kids, both of them, are in more jeopardy than ever before. Because now it's like, if he's the Dark Lord of the Sith working for Palpatine and figures out that I think Obi-Wan has to go confront Vader and kill him.
Well,
I mean, we're going to try.
Yeah, he's going to take a shot at it.
It's going to, because he has to. If not, these kids will never be safe, no matter where in the universe they go. Vader will find them.
All right.
I will find you.
I will find you. I will find them. All right. Black Math 88 writes and sends in like a $28 super chat. Thank you, Black Math, for supporting us on that level, man. I've been thinking, do you think the prequels would have been better if George Lucas didn't direct them himself? Yes, 1,000%. And only wrote the story. To me, the strongest of the OGs are the ones he didn't, Empire and Jedi. Well, I mean, look, the original Star Wars is brilliant and fantastic. But we talked about this a little bit today. One of the cool things, because I am somebody who does not appreciate the prequels. I think they're hot garbage. But that's not to say there aren't things about them I can point at and say, I love that element of it and that element of it. And it brought a lot of people in. But here's the thing. I've always said, and I said this on the John Campea Show earlier today, that if you take a 5-page outline of the story of the prequels and just says, this happens and this happens and this happens, and you just do like a 5-page outline, that story is great. And when you watch the previously on Star Wars part, that 1-minute thing that sums up the story about finding young Anakin to the fall of Anakin, again, that's that 5-page outline. It is a great story. Here's what it is. I read somebody in the live chat on the John Campea Show today say this, and I think it was perfect. George Lucas is a great world builder, not necessarily a great director. And I think that's really a good summary of that. I think Steven Spielberg should have directed the damn prequels anyway.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, look, I think that also George Lucas kind of lost touch with humanity in the sense that, like, if you watch I think it's the beginning documentary, they were going in and literally slicing up shots. Like he was taking one line from one shot and putting them together.
Because he could.
Yeah, because he could. And it was so stilted. The problem with I think the problem with the prequels is none of the characters sound like they're real people.
Yeah.
There's not one line reading where, you know, you go back to Star Wars and you look at the characters. I don't know. Do you think a princess and a guy like me? No.
No,
you know, and it's like that's what real people sound like. You know, when Alec Guinness leans back and he's just playing with his beard, those are real people. You know, and I think another thing is that I've always thought of Star Wars as a movie about a farmer, a truck driver, and a veteran of foreign wars, like an old And so they're just people. Whereas the people in the prequel trilogy, they're all weird royalty, and you go back to Tatooine and you meet Shmi and you meet young Anakin, but even them, they don't talk like real people. Are you an angel? And it's so weird. Like you don't believe them at all. And I think that's the problem, is that Star Wars, the great strength of the original Star Wars is that you believe it. That movie made you believe it. And every line of dialogue, when 3PO, when you first meet him, he says, "Did you hear that? They've shut down the main reactor. You know, there'll be no escape for the princess this time."
Yeah.
That this time, that means they've been in this kind of thing before. And they're like all these little lines of dialogue, it's like it's pulling you along. And the original Star Wars is a brilliant, if you think about it, everywhere you go, like when you wake up in the middle of the sandcrawler, you're like, where are we now? And then it's dragging you along. You learn, then these Jawas are like, and then when the R5, the motivator in R5D4 blows up, then you realize these Jawas that you think are scary because they have 3PO, they had R2. Then suddenly, hey, this guy's trying, what are you trying to push on us? You know, and then it changes up. So you're constantly learning and you believe it. You don't believe the prequels.
But again, I will say that the story of the prequels
It's awesome.
is a wonderful story.
I mean, the end of democracy, and then what happens with Anakin and Obi-Wan, the fact that he wants to be recognized. Why aren't I a master yet?
Yeah.
'Cause you're a douche.
Like one of the best lines actually in all the and I don't want to turn this into a big dissertation on the prequels, but one of the best lines that I really did love that I think stands out, especially in like modern political environment, is when this is how the democracy dies to the sound of thunderous applause.
And that only becomes more relevant as the years go by.
Yeah.
I mean, we're living in this world right now. So it was but that single line is exactly the story that Lucas was telling in a nutshell, in one line.
All right, let's keep going. Sorry, we're running out of time here, so we got to keep going. All right, Blake62 writes, love the first two. It was bold move to use 10-year-old Leia, in my opinion, but it really works for me. I felt the actress in writing captured her spirit well. Listen, I'll tell you what, that pretty much, I mean, taking out the main part, which is the performance of Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan, that is easily the best part. I mean, I like the Inquisitors. I liked a lot of the different things, but that little girl as Leia, like, oh my God, she stole my heart. Totally stole my heart. I could just eat her up. I loved it. I want to see more of her. And I never would have thought, if you told me beforehand, they're going to have a 10-year-old Leia and you're going to totally love her, I'm going to be like, really?
Yeah, I would have thought the same thing.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But all right. All right, next up. We got, was that Blake? That was Blake, yes. NR99 writes, I love that chunk of the footage shown in the marketing. Oh, we already saw that, right?
I think it repeated that.
Oh, that one repeated itself. Okay, Jamie Sundays writes, Star Wars trilogy is considered some of the greatest cinema in the world. Why the creators don't strive to be the greatest TV ever is beyond me. I know not everyone's going to feel the same, but that's okay. Here's the problem, Jamie. Every TV show creator, every TV show writer, every TV show producer always thinks they're going to make the greatest thing in TV history. Do you think George Lucas or anybody at Fox thought for a second that this is going to be some of the greatest movies ever made? There's a reason why Fox was the last studio that George went to that finally gave him a green light. And they didn't know, like even Alec Guinness was like, I don't know what this thing is we're making. Like
Right.
even Alec Guinness didn't think it was going to turn up. So every filmmaker, every TV showrunner, they all set out to try to make the show that's going to win the most Emmys and think. The problem is we as fans think it's easy. Because some of these people make it look easy, but it's not. It's ridiculously hard. Rob, you have made television shows. Like you were a producer on like a running cable television series and stuff like that. It's not that easy to do that.
And I would say this too. Remember, when you have a Vince Gilligan who's in charge of making Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul,
yeah.
He's pretty much, while he is working for a network, he's the guy. Like he's the creator. Star Wars has now become a brand that is serving corporate interests. And I remember reading Kathleen Kennedy said the Kenobi scripts were originally way too dark. She's like, you can't.
Which is weird because this was pretty dark.
Pretty dark. But
so
you could see like when they're hacking off limbs of people, the darkness was there. I'm sure they brightened it up and they made like the Leia stuff.
Also, when darkness, I also think it's like the brokenness of Kenobi, the nihilistic worldview he has now.
Yeah,
how much darker were those original scripts?
But I'm sure it was even leaned heavily into that.
Yeah.
I mean, so when they're making a Star Wars show, it's not just a Vince Gilligan calling the shots. They have to be beholden to what Disney corporate interests want. Our friend Cliff Stevenson was pointing out, he texted me last night and he goes, how strange is it that the entire Disney Plus streaming shows, The Mandalorian, Boba Fett, Cassian Andor, they're all from the original trilogy era, just past the original. And yet like their theme parks with Star Wars Galaxy's Edge was all the sequel trilogy stuff that was their Disney only stuff. But now they're going back to that era where they realized this was the era of Star Wars that people really wanted to see, which is sort of interesting. But Disney has to play that. It's tough because you still have to make a family friendly show. Like you could go really dark. I mean, Andor looks.
Yeah, that's going to push the limits of being quote unquote family
man.
friendly.
I mean, I'm like, okay, this is the kind of thing that I want to see, but they still have to keep the show. They could have made this rule. I don't want to see a really depressing show. I mean, it's still it's Obi-Wan Kenobi. At some point, I want to see him unleash with that lightsaber,
you know what I want to see? I want to see a really dark one where it's like, we lost, the fight is over, we lost. And then he gets shut down and burned by Owen. So then he goes out into the desert, digs out his lightsaber and just goes, goes all samurai and just ends his own life, and then the credits roll. Like, you want to retcon something?
Wow.
We'll retcon something. That's dark.
But yeah, they can't do that. They still have to.
They can't do that. All right. What's next here? We got Ahmed E. who writes, the nightmare scene of the flashbacks from the prequels just shows you how damaged Obi-Wan is and how much Qui-Gon meant to him. Yeah, listen, because I think we gloss over the loss of Qui-Gon to him. I'll tell you what, the prequels glossed over it. You got to understand, Qui-Gon was a father to Obi-Wan.
Look at that shot of him when Qui-Gon gets.
Yeah, well, remember,
Right
he would have been with him since he was a child.
Yeah.
And he was his mentor, his parent, he was all of that. And I kind of feel like in the prequels, they kind of gloss over that in the second two prequels about what a significant loss that was for Obi-Wan. And I like the fact that now in the Obi-Wan series, we're being reminded, and that's really good for you to point out, that we're reminded that was a traumatic loss for him. And that on top of his failure of the galaxy, the death of Anakin, the loss of Padme, the fact that the Republic fell, and like all of that combines on him. And I just think what Ewan McGregor, the weight of that's on his shoulder, I thought Ewan McGregor portrayed it perfectly. All right. Next up, we got Fifi who writes, so, is Rebels not canon anymore? I'm so confused in the Grand Inquisitor death. We've obviously talked about that a few times. Let's see how they explain their way out of this, because it may very well not be a retcon at all. Let's see how they play with it, because they've obviously already played semantics with the fact that Obi-Wan and Vader are going to meet again. All right, Jamie Sundays writes, please, for the love of God, Lucasfilm, you live in beautiful planet Earth. Can you once go shoot outside on location with beautiful landscapes, please? Well, have you ever seen Return of the Jedi? Have you ever, I mean, they and clearly there was a bunch of outdoor stuff here as well when we were on Alderaan and things like that. But I mean, it all depends on the environment that you're in. It's a lot easier if you're in a desert, which I think is one of the reasons they've gone to Tatooine so much, if you ever read any of the horror stories of them trying to do the original Star Wars in Tunisia, I mean, you understand why you want to shoot that in something like their sets.
And that's what I was saying early on about the volume stages.
Yeah.
The volume stages allow them to shoot in any environment they want, but they're limited as to how they can shoot it, because you've got these LED backgrounds and you can have foreground elements, but you can't have somebody running through the woods with a camera following. The speeder bike chase would be very difficult to do in the volume stages. David Fincher.
By the way, I believe they shot that in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, did they really?
I think they did. I think so at any rate. I could be mistaken about that.
But I mean,
big forests.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that our viewer is very astute, and I would say I agree with them. The problem is to move your entire company on location. That's hugely expensive, and you couldn't do that kind of location shooting on a TV budget.
All right, next up, we've got Jay Master, who writes, the first two episodes were freaking amazing, but the final scene in episode 2, seeing Darth Vader again, was cool. I was yelling at the top of my lungs with excitement. Deborah Chow delivers once again. Yeah, listen, the main reason I have felt optimism was since Mandalorian and realizing Deborah Chow, who did some of the best directing in Mandalorian, she was in charge. And by the way, where I really got on board with it was in, what do they call it again? The making of series, Star Wars, something or other, when they did the 6-episode making of Mandalorian season, right? And they're behind the scenes watching Deborah Chow, and like John Favreau talking about it, it's like, yeah, you just kind of stay out of her way.
Right.
And she out of all of them, like with all the other directors, they're like, being so creative. And like Deborah Chow's like, 9. This is when like she runs a tight ship, and she's like, this is what we're doing. It's like, yeah, just kind of stay out of her way and let her go. And I loved what she did in Mandalorian. I was so excited, and I'm really, again, I thought episode 2 was a little weaker than episode 1. I still liked it though, and I think they're off to a really good start.
Look at that running and gunning shot she does in the beginning in the Jedi Temple.
Oh yeah,
It was like one shot they run. That was pretty good.
All right, next up. Jose Miaz writes, that clone vet was so sad. The look Ben gave him. I mean, obviously, Ben and Rex were very close. So to see that and wondering if that was, again, I don't think it was Rex because obviously Rex would have instantly recognized him. But yeah, you're just kind of reminded. And I don't think that's the last we're going to see of an old clone trooper.
Nope. I don't either.
Yeah, I think we're going to see more of that at some point. Dr. J writes, and says in like almost a $15 super chat, thank you, Dr. J, for supporting us on that level. Not a great plan to lure Obi-Wan, then leave a few schmucks in charge of detaining him while you turn up late to capture him. Yeah, except other than the fact that he had that little smoke bomb on, they had him.
Right.
I mean, they had him. But even then, even if he gets away from them, you got him on world. You know which world he's on, and you can shut it down and all that kind of stuff. So actually, look, we can say it's not a very good plan. The plan worked. She got him there. None of the other Inquisitors who had been trying for 10 years to find him were able to do it. So I wouldn't be quick to criticize the plan when it did more success than anybody else had at the time. And he just got away at the skin of his teeth. So is it that bad of a plan? I'm not sure. All right, next up. Christopher Brickner writes, Kenobi owes shit face when he learns Anakin is alive is great. Now he knows he is in real trouble as Anakin is now on his tail. Listen, but here's the beautiful part about it. I don't think that was necessarily all oh shit. Anakin, like in the previously on, they made note to repeat the lines, I loved you. You're my brother.
Yeah.
I don't think that's just oh no, the horrifying Anakin still left. I think there's also a lot of emotional conflict.
100%.
There's a part of him that wants to go, Anakin's alive. And Hogman's like, oh, damn it, Anakin's alive. Like, I think, and that's the beauty in his face. It wasn't just fear and terror. It was amazing conflict about how he feels. How did you take it?
I agree 100%. And there was all kinds of possibilities. My brother, he's not dead. And then I left him for dead. So there's probably some guilt there. Then there's like, these kids are in way more danger than I ever thought they are. And then there's also, maybe there's good in him. You know, there's so many conflicting emotions, and Mr. McGregor, he played it great. I mean, that moment was awesome.
Yeah, it was a beautiful moment. All right, next up. Always Angry 410 Warzone writes, is it just me or does the droid, it was Lola, that's right. Does the droid Lola remind you of the alien robots from the movie Batteries Not Included? We, like great minds, always angry. I didn't think of that myself until Rob said it, and I guess one of our viewers wrote that in earlier. Yeah. Totally bang on the money. That exactly, and you're right, because if that was Lucasfilm, there's no way that wasn't an homage.
Of course it was. And that movie is so weird.
It's a weird movie.
I like it, but it's a weird movie.
All right, next up, we got Hammy Reacts writes, the show reignited my love for Star Wars and the film prequels I grew up with. Great to see Ewan and Hayden back in the spotlight. Thanks for all that you do. And again, listen, as much as I have been a prequel hater, the fact is, though, a lot of the people who were involved in those movies got done dirty. Jake Lloyd, I mean, probably more so than anybody. Ahmed Best, who is a wonderful guy, a guy who played Jar Jar, obviously. There's a lot of similarities to the way Jar Jar is received in the universe to the way Ahmed got received in the real world. Yeah. And Hayden Christensen, listen, they were all working for a director that didn't know how to work with actors. And that were just kind of thrown in front of a green screen and said, just recite the lines. And then think everything is just made magically in post. And it is sad. And so when I was at Star Wars Celebration in Orlando a few years ago, where I defeated Sam Witwer in Star Wars trivia, just saying, just mentioning it. But when I was in Orlando for that, and they brought out Hayden Christensen, and it just warmed my heart to see the reception that he got. It was beautiful. It was really a beautiful moment because you know how much crap that he took over the years for that. Of course. So to see him and Ewan being able to do this together again. I never thought they would have done it. I was really glad that they did. Anyway, what do you think about the fact that he's...
I think it's great. I mean, and you look at, I've watched a lot of appearances. They've made a lot of talk show appearances and done stuff together. And that's what Ewan McGregor is saying, is that when the movies came out, we got a lot of vitriol, and now people have reconsidered them. And there's a whole group of people, a whole generation of people, kids that grew up with those movies. That was their first Star Wars. Episode 1, they saw it when they were 5, 6, 7, and they grew up with those movies. And just like we grew up with the original films. And I think it's nice to see it coming full circle. I kind of hope that Ahmed Best gets a shot to come back and maybe do something where he gets proven.
Him something.
Why not?
I don't want to see, don't get me wrong, I don't want to see Jar Jar the street performer, but yeah, let him be an extra.
Well, what if he's a politician? And I wouldn't put it past them to put Jar Jar Binks in this series. At one point, if he shows up and he does something heroic, I could see.
Because of the novels, we know how he ends up.
Well, but
then again, they've been retconning all the novels.
Yeah.
So who knows? All right, next up. We got Samuel Shin, who writes, my issue is young Leia's acting. It just feels forced, but her personality traits are there. I found a humorous and cringy when she was running from mercenaries. They got stuck in trees, poorly shot. Again, first of all, I don't agree at all. I think you find me another child actor that age who can deliver a better performance than that. I think what she delivered there was fantastic.
I don't disagree, though, with our viewer about the way that particular stuff was shot, because
running through the trees part.
Yeah, they did him like singles, and you'd see her in the foreground and you'd see them struggling behind, because to shoot coverage, I mean, if they were using the volume stages there too, it would have been difficult to get the kind of, it would have been more threatening if these guys were shown as being very agile. So I do agree with him. I don't agree with him about her performance, but I do agree. But that was the only time when I'm like, come on. There was one shot, in particular where she was like in the foreground and they're like bumbling around. And I'm like, come on.
The one thing I will say is there are moments they should have played into that thing about the fact that she was using her knowledge of the terrain to her advantage a little bit better. Because there was one particular shot, I think it's the one you're referencing, where she's in the foreground and it's just a straight path.
Yes.
And they're behind her. It's like, yeah, they would have caught her pretty fast.
Yeah.
She can't. So they either should have started the shot with her much further ahead of them, or done more cuts to her utilizing the terrain that she knows. Again, at least at the end of it, she didn't get away. They caught her.
Right.
But I mean, that one shot, she shouldn't be able to be expanding her lead on them on a straight, flat plane.
Or you could have gone for the shot where there's two of them and then she runs smash into one of them. Trips and falls, and she looks up and then one of them is just standing there and reaches and grabs. So it's a cliche.
But they did get her.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, let's see. Josh Kahn writes, I went into last night super excited for Obi-Wan and lukewarm on Stranger Things. After 2 episodes each, I'm now super excited to continue Stranger Things and lukewarm on Obi-Wan. Inquisitors were bad. I thought the Inquisitors were great. Except for I love the character of Reva.
Yeah.
I'm not on board with the performance of it at this point. And when you're the main antagonist, that is an issue. And we'll see how they address that moving forward. I haven't started on Stranger Things yet, but I'm very excited to get going on Stranger Things. All right, next up. Nightmare Narrative writes, did you see Mark Hamill in the background in episode 2 of Kenobi? Also, Ewan's daughter was the one who gave him spice. I did not know that watching the show. I found that out on Twitter earlier today. It's like, that was McGregor's daughter.
She was great, by the way.
Yeah.
I love that. Like, it'll put you wherever you want to, whatever. I love that. I'm like, that's what she would say.
Couple more of these, you'll forget you're even here, or something like that.
Great.
But no, Mark Hamill was in the background in one of the scenes.
Apparently, yeah.
Was he like in the town square or something?
I do not know.
I did not know about this. Now I'm gonna have to go back and watch the episode again and see if I can catch it. All right. Thanks for letting us know about that. All right. Irene Jobson writes, thanks for hosting these. Our pleasure. I've been excited about doing these.
They're fun.
And excited about using Studio B. This is our very first thing that we're doing in Studio B.
It's pretty nifty.
For the smaller, a little more intimate shows. I hope you guys are enjoying it. We're enjoying doing it. All right. Next up, we got Jamie Sundays who writes, never cared out canon.
Probably about.
Yeah, that's probably it. Never cared about canon contradictions. To me, the only true canon are the motion pictures. Anything else can go skip rocks. Well, I mean, that's why back in the day, right, there used to be a lot of arguments about what is canon and what is not. And particularly when Disney took over Lucasfilm, and then the announcement came out that all the expanded universe stuff was not canon. And people had said they removed them from canon. To which I would remind them, they didn't remove shit. They never were canon.
Yeah.
And this
Except Jackson, the bunny from the Marvel Comics series.
But that's
He's
because at the time, Rob, I don't know if you remember, but at the time, in the years before Disney took over Lucasfilm, Canon was an absolute mess at Lucasfilm. They even started to establish this ridiculous system that was all this alphabetical system of canon. There was like C level canon, D level canon, whatever. And then there was the Holy of Holies, the G level canon. Why was G the top level of canon?
It was great.
Because it stood for George level canon. It's literally G level canon was the stuff that would actually happen on the screen, not including droids and the Ewoks TV show and stuff like that. But the stuff that was actually the movies and stuff like that was what they called G level canon, and all these other things, like 8 different levels of canon that were canon but not really canon anyway. And so it was an absolute mess. And that's why I only tend to raise my ears a little bit when it's stuff that seems to be contradicting what would have been called G-level canon, when it's contradicting stuff that actually happened in the movies. When it's stuff like in the books, I'll raise my ears a bit, but I'll be forgiving of it but the thing is, Disney said now everything we put out is canon. Well, they've already broken that rule about 50 times.
Oh, yeah.
So you're right. Well, I'm more forgiving of that. It's just, I don't like it when they contradict what's actually happened in the official movies or in one of the official shows, but we'll see how they work around it. All right, next up. Anurag P writes, still young in Star Wars knowledge, but how did the Jedi fall so quickly to the clones? Like, aren't they superior fighters? Was the ratio that bad? Oh, the ratio would have been 1,000 to 1.
Yeah.
And not to mention when Order 66 was executed, they never saw it coming.
Nope.
That's the thing. The Jedis just didn't see it coming. And if you've got 50 Jedi in the temple and 5,000 troops with Anakin Skywalker showing up, and first of all, the first 30 are shot in the back because they had no idea what was coming. Eventually it's just a matter of numbers.
Absolutely. I mean, 100%. I totally agree with that. I mean, can you imagine how many clone troopers, again, Obi-Wan Kenobi, went and found them on Camino, and they're like, we've been making these for what, 50 years? Wasn't it like 50 years, like Sifo
Ever since Sifo Dyas put in the order.
I mean, I put in this order, and now you were ready. I mean, they've been making clone troops for decades. There was a lot of them, and they were trained well.
Yep. All right, next up. And programmed, by the way.
Yeah.
Let's see. Desire writes, I enjoyed the first 2 episodes. However, I had a lot of issues. One being the first chase scene with Leia in the forest felt completely unnecessary. I agree. Like, while I'm kind of okay with how it played out, it wasn't necessary for that scene to be anything other than, hello, princess, snatch. It didn't need, unless something narratively happens during that chase. There didn't
But
really
I
need to
think
be
that our viewer might be referring to the actual chase, the first chase when we meet Leia in the woods, and that mom has sent people out to get her. She's in the woods and she's trying to evade.
I think she probably means the chase with I mean, you might be right.
Because it was like, to me, that was the one thing I'm like, this is so Disney princess. This is so right out of an animated. Where's the princess? Like, it's Mulan. You know, she's out there being precocious and outrunning her father's troops, her people. And I'm just...
I'm curious if Desire is still in the live chat, is still watching live. I'd be curious if you would put that in there, like, because when you say the chase was unnecessary, do you mean that first one, like with her own guards, or do you mean the one when she was escaping the bounty hunters?
Yeah, only because I kind of felt that way. I'm like, you could have introduced. I would have been interested to, again, when I talk about world building, it would have been interesting when you meet Leia, that she's doing something that shows.
By the way, Desire saying she was referring to when she got captured.
Oh, she was. Okay, then I'm wrong. Never mind.
But I mean, I could totally see why you were thinking that.
I would want to see something different. Like, give me something, like, we don't immediately know it's Leia. Like, you're just on Alderaan.
Right.
And if there was something that played into her character that we could recognize that, she's 10 years old, but that's Princess Leia.
Yeah.
Instead of running away with her little animal droid, which was like right out of any Disney animated movie.
All right. Who was it said that? Hansen Spiegel says in the live chat, running from the flea. All right, Kylo Ken writes, I'm pretty surprised by the number of people that think the Grand Inquisitor is dead in the second episode. I'm like, come on, guys. Have you not seen any of the Star Wars animation? Okay, but I think Reva would understand. If I make this move on the Grand Inquisitor, I better make sure I finish the job.
Yeah.
Because I'm screwed.
Unless she wasn't trying to kill him.
That's true too.
You know, she knew that she was incapacitating him. So she could get done what she needed
Maybe she was just trying to make a point?
Yeah, literally.
I see what you did there. All right.
No, you did it.
All right. So we'll see Kylo Ken. Like I said, we'll find out in the upcoming episodes. Like, is he dead? Is he not? Was this a part of her plan? Was it not? Let's see how they play this out. All right. Onrog P writes, guess Rey wasn't the first to bury lightsabers. Nope. That was obviously a little bit of a shout out as well, that this is part of the lineage. Remember, at one point they were thinking that she was going to be the granddaughter of Obi-Wan Kenobi. So that would have even given more weight to that. But yep. And just, again, I'm amazed by his natural GPS that in the middle of these sand dunes, this is the spot right here.
Don't they call out to the Jedi?
But he hasn't really used the Force, right? He hasn't used the Force until he's like saving her from falling off the thing, which is why he struggled so much. Okay, next up, Rafael Castillo writes, I'm loving little Leia, right up there in cuteness with Diana Princess. If you're talking about the young one in, listen, that young Diana in Wonder Woman 84, one of the better things of that episode. Again, I totally get Lady Mormont vibes from her.
Totally.
I think she even looks like her a little bit.
She does look like Lady Mormont. She totally does.
Oh, and I love that character too. All right, Film Chris writes, love the first two episodes. The cut at the very end when he said Anakin and a cut to Vader in his tank, goosebumps. Hope episode 3 is Vader filled. I don't know. Even when we found out Hayden Christensen was going to be in it, I'm like, for everybody, I remember I said this one of our episodes. I said, for everybody who thinks this is going to be like Vader, all 8 episodes, because at the time I thought it was going to be 8 episodes instead of 6. But I say, for those of you who think it's going to be Vader, all 8 episodes, I think you're going to be very, very disappointed. And here we are now, 1/3 of the way, and he hasn't really showed up yet, aside from a quick shot at the end. I don't know how much, we only got 4 episodes left, so he's got to show up soon. Are we going to get 1 episode where he's very present? Or are we going to get 2 or 3 episodes? What do you think?
I think the next episode, I have no reason to think this. I have no knowledge or anything. I think the next episode we see is going to be a flashback with them in the Clone Wars doing something. Ooh. That's going to inform whatever's going on later.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we haven't seen before, because I was surprised that we got the Jedi Temple flashback at the beginning.
Yeah.
So I think that we might get a flashback that shows them full on battle mode doing something amazing.
I like that theory. All right, next up. We have, where are we? Are we at Shaun? Yeah, Shaun of the Dead, one of my favorite horror comedies of all time. Rob, since you know Bryan Singer, I have to ask, why did he go for character story over good story? Well, skip over here. Sorry about that, Shaun of the Dead, but we're here to talk about Obi-Wan.
This is a whole different topic.
You're at the wrong show. Desire writes, my other issue was when Leia was falling and Obi-Wan uses the Force. How come the guys on the roof stopped shooting at him? He was completely still. I think he was out of line of sight at that point. When he ran to that spot, remember, he had already killed one of them. One of them he had already killed. And my thing is, when he got to that spot, my just assumption as a viewer was he was out of line of sight. I don't know. How did you?
No, I agree. He was out of line. I mean, he was out of the line of fire.
Right.
Otherwise, I mean, he would use his Jedi powers, but whatever.
And then just instantly be shot.
Yeah. I mean,
I think that's how I just initially took it as.
Yeah, because they were constantly looking for cover. Everybody was looking for cover. So.
All right, good question though, man. All right, next up, we got Nathan Barnett who writes, how is it Reva and or Vader knows where Vader's kids are? Does that not shrink the universe for you? I loved episode 1 and 2, but there's no way Reva just kidnapped some random senator's kid in hopes to draw out Obi-Wan. Just a little lazy. Love that kid though. Absolutely not. Listen, nobody will complain about the shrinking of the Star Wars universe more than this guy. I complain about it all the time. However, Star Wars canon has already clearly represented that Bail Organa and Obi-Wan had a close relationship.
Yeah.
That they fought side by side in the Clone Wars and all that kind of stuff. Doing her research, she realized, okay, so Obi-Wan's got a real tight connection with this particular high-profile guy.
I mean, he's a high-profile diplomat. It's like
he's an imperial senator.
Yeah, how many other movies? Like if this was a Jack Ryan movie or somebody's going to kidnap the kid of it's Man on Fire, and somebody kidnaps Dakota Fanning. You've got Creasy has to go protect her. It's that's exactly what it is.
Yeah,
nobody knows that these are Vader's kids.
Yeah, she does not know that that these kids are Vader's kids. She doesn't know that. She just knows that, hey, there was this very high-profile connection between General Kenobi and Senator Bail Organa. And if Kenobi's still out there and Bail Organa's child goes missing, Obi-Wan Kenobi's going to come out of hiding to do that. So it had nothing to do with him being Vader's kid. So personally, the guy who was always bitching and whining and complaining and crying about Star Wars shrinking the universe, boo-hoo, that's me. Even I will say, no, that's not a shrinking universe. That narratively makes sense.
Yep.
At least I think so.
100%.
All right. But I'll tell you what, though, if they said that Reva did know that those are Anakin's kids, then I totally take that back. It would be then that would be complete bullshit. But they made it clear that wasn't the case. All right. Claudius writes, Kenobi, Moses Ingram's third sister is very angry and insecure. She's not chewing the scene like Cate Blanchett's confident Hela. Unlike the third sister, Hela knew she could beat Thor and Loki with her hands tied. Bring on the filthy and go Air Force. You got the Air Force.
Gave this shirt to me.
Oh, well, that would explain that. That would explain that. Yeah, I mean, again, there is so much about the character of Reva that I find, again, like the prequels themselves, that on paper to me looks really good. She was one of the Padawans at the Purge, the Order 66 Purge of the Jedi Temple. The fact that she is very ambitious. She's not just happy to be an Inquisitor. She wants probably to be Grand Inquisitor. She's filled with ambition. She's willing to be defiant. She's willing to be backstabby or front stabby, as the case may be. I love all that on paper. To me, it's just, I like the character, but as Rob, you've pointed out several times here, it just felt very one note and one dimensional.
Yeah, I mean, look, I want to see, you want villains, like, look at Krennic in Rogue One.
Right.
There was a villain who was just having fun, like just the way he spoke. And I wanted to see this. I mean, these Inquisitors, they're badasses. They toy with people. They're having a good time. They like being Inquisitors. These are like the elite of the elite. And she's been looking for Kenobi for 10 years. And she frankly thinks these other two guys are idiots.
Yeah.
I mean, she really, like, you might wonder, I don't have I mean, you could see, I would have, if I had directed the scene or something, I think if you would have done the same thing, when he's monologuing in the restaurant, I would have cut back to her just being like, why are we wasting our time? But okay, he's my boss. I wanted to have more of that. I wanted to have more fun. I wanted her to be having more fun. She was so dour.
But I really do like that in that scene, they also showcase the hierarchy there.
Right.
Because she goes to kill the guy, and Grand Inquisitor is powerful enough, like, nope. And he's powerful enough to stop her blade right as it's touching the guy's arm, right? So there were some pretty cool, interesting character things going on.
And I like the fact that she was like third in line. It was the Grand Inquisitor's son, Kay, was the fifth brother, and then the third sister.
Yeah, your abilities have given you station, but you are the least. It wasn't like you're the least of us. Or something like that.
And that was great.
It's like, and again, I love that because it's like, now you just pissed her off. I mean, that wasn't called for. All right, next up. Now the rest of it is just support that people have put in there from who? Who's that?
Robo producer at the bottom, 99 cents.
Oh, Robo producer sends in just support to be supportive. 7-3 Eve. We also had a couple people subscribe to the channel as well as we've been doing. 730 Evie, Mark Dennis, Panos, Yang Rodriguez, Michael Mitchell. Thank you all guys for subscribing to the channel and being here. And guys, that'll do it for our first episode of our Obi-Wan after show. Make sure you guys come back and continue to join us every week as we, of course, cover episodes 3, 4, 5, and then 6. By the way, we've also got after shows lined up that we're going to get ready to do for The Boys. Obviously, we're going to be doing one for Miss Marvel as well. All the after shows will be happening from here in Studio B. We hope you join us for this. So thanks for joining us, guys. Big special thank you to all you guys who sent in those super chats because, number one, you gave us some great things we didn't even catch.
Yeah, this is
in
good stuff.
Obi-Wan, and you supported our channel at the same time we're doing it. I want to thank, of course, Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Instagram, John, at RM
yep.
Burnett. You can find me on Twitter at Burnett RM. Find me on my own YouTube channel, The Post Geek Singularity, thepostgeeksingularity.com.
It's funny because somebody's asking, Aris is writing in the live chat, wait a minute, it's over already? Listen, this after show has already gone longer than the 2 episodes put together. So yeah, we've been going for a little while here. Anyway, guys, you of course can find me on Twitter and on Instagram right there, simply at John Campea. Also want to thank producer Jonathan back there who is running the show for all of us, and to all of you for taking time out to join us. Make sure you guys come back and join us next week for the next episode of Obi-Wan. Of course, come on back for when we do the John Campea Show on Monday. Is it Friday today? No, today's Thursday.
It's Friday.
It's Friday.
And Monday's Memorial Day.
Right.
So we're doing a show, though.
We'll still be here. Yeah. Don't you worry, guys. We'll still be here. Everybody else is going to fail you. We will not. Anyway, guys, that will do it for us. Thanks a lot for joining us. My name is John Campea, and until next time, my friends, may the Force be with you.